All right, so are you ready to dive into another deep dive?
Always ready.
Okay, cool. So this time we're tackling Bad Boys, Ride or Die. I know a lot of you are fans, especially after Bad Boys for life. The question is this one, is Ride or Die worth your time? We've got this review from Screen Hub Entertainment. They always have some pretty interesting takes, and it sounds like, from what I've skimmed through, this one is kind of all over the place.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we've got character role reversals. Apparently, Mike Lowry gets a pretty surprising emotional arc, and the action sequences sound like they completely defy physics.
Sounds like they're trying to pull out all the stops for this one.
Yeah, maybe trying a little too hard. We'll see. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me just give you a little taste of what the reviewer had to say overall. They didn't think it was quite as good as For Life, but they did say it was a fun, brainless action flick, and it's got that early 2000s action movie vibe. What do you think about that? Like, is fun, brainless action flick even a compliment?
Well, I think it depends on what you're looking for, right? Sometimes you just want to turn off your brain and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
But I think what makes those early 2000s action movies so appealing, even today, is that blend of over the top action with a certain self awareness.
Yeah.
It's like they knew they were being ridiculous and they just leaned into it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, but here's where things start to get kind of weird. The reviewer was really shocked by some of the character choices.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, after having a heart attack, supposedly becomes this like carefree, almost reckless goofball. And Mike, now that he's got a family to think about, he's dealing with panic attacks during shootouts. I mean, what's going on there? It's like they completely flipped the script.
Yeah, you'd think Marcus would be the one slowing down and Mike would be the same old hothead.
Right.
Makes you wonder if the writers were trying to subvert expectations or if they just didn't know how to evolve these characters in a way that felt authentic, you know?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that plays out on screen. But at least the action sounds pretty amazing. The reviewer had nothing but praise for that. They specifically called out the directors, Adil and Bilal, and their use of practical effects. Apparently, even the blood squibs are old school.
Oh, wow. That's a detail you don't often hear in reviews these days.
Right.
And I think it speaks to this larger trend we're seeing, don't you think? Like, there's this real resurgence of practical effects in action movies, almost like a backlash against the overuse of CGI. It's like audiences are craving that visceral, tangible feel of real stunts and explosions.
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't love seeing a car flip through the air for real?
Exactly.
But speaking of action, the reviewer actually mentioned that Reggie, that poor guy who's always getting caught in the crossfire,
Oh, yeah, Reggie.
he gets some of the best action sequences in the movie.
It's about time he got some love.
I know, right? He deserves it.
Definitely, definitely.
So let's get into the plot a little bit. So we know Captain Howard is framed,
Uh-huh.
and it sounds like whatever they're pinning on him goes all the way back to 2003. So we've got Mike and Marcus on the run trying to clear his name. The reviewer actually compared it to The Fugitive. Have you seen that one?
Of course. Classic thriller. Innocent man on the run trying to prove his innocence. You can't go wrong with that.
So are we seeing like a similar kind of vibe in Ride or Die? Like that sense of urgency, that cat and mouse chase?
It sounds like they're playing with those elements for sure, but with that added layer of the classic bad boys dynamic, you know?
Cool.
A mismatched partners, the witty banter, all that.
Yeah.
It's a formula that works,
For sure.
and it's definitely present in the Bad Boys franchise.
So here's the thing that's really throwing me off. The reviewer said Marcus is like obsessed with candy now, and he's convinced that he can't die after his heart attack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or just plain weird.
Yeah, that's the part that makes me hesitate a little bit. It's like they're trying to inject humor into a situation that's actually pretty serious, you know?
Yeah.
And you have to wonder if it undercuts any potential for exploring, the emotional weight of Marcus coming to terms with his own mortality.
Right. It's one thing to lean into the over-the-top
Mm.
action and humor, but it's a delicate balance, right? You don't want to lose sight of the characters and their journeys.
Exactly. And that's what makes this movie so intriguing to me. It's playing with those familiar tropes and character dynamics, but also trying to shake things up a bit. The question is, does it succeed?
Yeah, I guess that's what we're here to figure out. What do you say we move on to the next part of the review and see what else we can uncover?
Sounds good to me. Lead the way.
All right, let's do it.
It's funny how much this review keeps coming back to the nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
It's like Ride or Die is really trying to capture that early 2000s action movie energy, and I'm curious if they can actually pull it off, you know?
Right. It's got that fun, brainless action flick label,
Mhm.
which, could be good, could be bad,
Yeah.
depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I think you hit on something really important. It's not just about, like, remaking those movies shot for shot.
Right.
It's got to capture that feeling,
Yeah.
that blend of humor and action and those characters that we all loved.
Exactly. And that's where things get tricky.
Yeah.
Nostalgia is powerful, but it can also be a trap. If they lean too hard on it, it's just going to feel derivative, like a cheap imitation.
Right. Right.
The best legacy sequels find a way to honor the past, but still make something new, something exciting.
So how do you think Ride or Die handles that?
Yeah.
The reviewers seemed a little unsure, especially with those character changes, like the whole Marcus can't die, eat all the candy thing. It just felt off to them.
Yeah, I can see why. It's like they just took a shortcut to character development. They used the near-death experience to instantly turn him into this carefree goofball, doesn't feel earned. And they forget that Marcus has always been the voice of reason, the one who balances out Mike.
Right, yeah, like they kind of did him dirty a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it feels disrespectful almost. But the reviewer did say that Mike's panic attacks added some depth, which was kind of unexpected. What do you think about that?
I think it's a bold choice. Could be really interesting. We haven't seen Mike deal with his own vulnerability before. It's like, now that he's got a family, now he understands the stakes.
Yeah, it humanizes him in a way we haven't seen before. It makes you think about all those classic action heroes who always seemed invincible.
Yeah.
Like, what happens when they start to feel their own mortality?
That's something a lot of these legacy sequels are dealing with. How do you take these larger-than-life characters and make them relatable?
Right.
How do you show them aging, evolving, but without taking away what made them iconic in the first place?
It's a tough balance to strike, for sure. But even if the character choices are a little questionable, the action, at least, sounds pretty spectacular. The reviewer was raving about the practical effects.
That's something I'm genuinely excited about. Practical effects just bring a level of authenticity that CGI can't touch.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And they were especially impressed by the car chases, which apparently are like a mix of that classic Bad Boys craziness with some really inventive camera work.
Nice.
They said it felt really fresh and exciting, even for a franchise that's known for, pushing the boundaries of action.
Yeah, sounds like the directors, Adil and Bilal, brought a lot of energy to this project, and I think their background in music videos might have something to do with it.
Oh, that's a good point.
There's a certain visual style that translates well to action.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, as far as the plot goes, it seems pretty straightforward. We've got Captain Howard being framed, evidence from 2003, Mike and Marcus on the run to clear his name. It's classic Bad Boys, but with that, added historical element that I think is really intriguing.
And I think that's what makes the Bad Boys movie so successful. They take a familiar formula, the buddy cop, the action, and then they add their own twist.
Yeah.
In this case, it's the past coming back to haunt them.
It raises the stakes. It's not just about saving the day. It's about confronting their history, their past choices.
Right, exactly. Adds another layer to the story. Makes you wonder if they'll really explore those themes. Or if it's just a plot device to get to the action.
Yeah. The reviewer also mentioned that the whole movie feels like a throwback to the early 2000s. Not just the action, but the way it's structured, the pacing, the humor. And that's a risky move, right?
Yeah, definitely. What was funny or edgy back then might not be now.
Exactly. It's like walking a tightrope, between nostalgia and insensitivity.
It makes you wonder if they're aware of those changing sensibilities. Are they acknowledging the past while still being mindful of the present?
Okay, so we've talked about the action, the characters, the plot, this whole nostalgia question.
Yeah.
But what about the overall message of the movie? Like, what's it trying to say?
That's where things get really interesting. And it's something the reviewer didn't really get into. I think Ride or Die is grappling with this idea of legacy, both for the characters and for the franchise itself.
Oh, I like that.
What does it mean to be bad boys in a world that's constantly changing?
And how do you pass the torch without losing what made the original so special?
Exactly. It's a question that a lot of these legacy sequels are wrestling with.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Ride or Die might have some interesting answers. What do you say we move on to the final part of the review and see what else we can dig up?
Let's do it. I'm ready to hear what the reviewer's final verdict is.
All right, let's go.
All right, so we've talked about the action and the characters and, that whole legacy sequel thing. But now I kind of want to open it up. What are, your burning questions about Bad Boys, Ride or Die? What did this review leave you wondering?
Yeah, so we actually got some really great questions from listeners who've been following along.
Okay, cool.
And they bring up some points that the reviewer didn't touch on, so I think they're definitely worth exploring.
Awesome. Let's hear him.
So this first one asks, given that this movie is trying to capture that early 2000s vibe, does it avoid any of those problematic tropes that, haven't aged so well?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the nostalgia and forget that some things from the past just don't really fly anymore.
Right, exactly. Especially for a franchise like Bad Boys that, has always pushed the boundaries with the humor and the action.
Yeah.
Those over the top elements were part of the appeal back then, but today's audiences might have a different perspective.
Yeah, it's all about context, right?
Absolutely. So it makes you wonder how Ride or Die handles that. Are they just recreating the past, or are they being mindful of, how things have changed?
Right. Okay, what's the next question?
Okay, so this one is about Mike's panic attacks. The listener asks, does the movie actually explore mental health in a meaningful way, or is it just a plot device?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I mean, it's great that they're acknowledging that even a guy like Mike Lowry can struggle with anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got to handle it with sensitivity.
Right, it could be really powerful, challenging that stereotype of the invincible action hero.
Yeah. Oh.
It could also feel exploitative if it's not done well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they actually show Mike, like, seeking help or talking to somebody about it.
Exactly.
That would add a layer of realism,
Yeah, and normalize the idea of seeking help,
which I think is something we definitely need more of, especially in action movies.
for sure.
All right, hit me with the last question.
Okay, this one is a fun one. The listener asks, what is the most outlandish action sequence you can imagine for a Bad Boys movie? No limits.
Oh, no limits. Okay, all right, let's get crazy. Okay, picture this. Mike and Marcus are chasing the bad guys through the streets of Tokyo. But instead of cars, they're on those bullet trains, those super fast ones.
Oh, yes.
And they're jumping from train to train, dodging like sushi chefs and businessmen
Love it.
while, firing their guns in slow motion.
Okay, keep going.
And then, just when you think it can't get any more insane, they end up fighting on top of one of those giant Godzilla statues overlooking the city.
Yes. And then Godzilla comes to life
Oh my God,
and
yes.
starts breathing fire at the bad guys.
While Mike and Marcus are, like, hanging on for dear life, cracking jokes the whole time.
Now, that's a Bad Boys action sequence.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had some fun imagining the future of the franchise, but let's bring it back to Ride or Die for a second. Based on everything we've talked about, do you think it's worth seeing?
I think it depends. If you're a diehard Bad Boys fan, you'll probably have a good time. The action sounds great. The humor is there. You've got that nostalgia factor.
But maybe not for everyone.
Yeah, if you're looking for something groundbreaking or super deep, you might be a little disappointed.
Sounds like it's a solid action movie, but maybe not the best in the series.
Right. But hey, sometimes you just need a fun escapist movie. Or...
Oh, absolutely. But it does make you wonder if there's more to the Bad Boys story than just, explosions and car chases.
Yeah, for sure. So here's a final question for you to think about.
All right.
What does the future hold for Mike and Marcus?
Hmm.
Will they stay the same bad boys we know and love? Or will they finally grow up a little, embrace a new chapter?
That is a great question. And I would love to hear what you guys think. So let us know your thoughts, and until next time, keep diving deep into the movies that matter to you.